Okay, we'll call this Agenda and Priorities meeting to order for March 16th. It's 3 p.m. and I'll ask Councillor Strong to please read the land acknowledgement.
The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor Barclay, if Council would consider, in addition to in-camera 7.3, organizational scan as per MGA 197.2 ATIA Section 29, please.
All right, thank you. Can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor Hill.
Mayor Barclay, I would make that motion.
Perfect. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right, we will move into 3.1 with Director Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So before you, administration brought forward a report just to provide council with some background on our provincial education property tax and also introduce the Property Taxes Reimagined communication initiative that was kind of spearheaded by Alberta municipalities. So under the Municipal Government Act, municipalities are required to collect the provincial education property tax on behalf of the Government of Alberta. And although this tax appears on our local property tax notice, the rate is set by the province and the revenue is 100% remitted to the provincial government to support kindergarten to the grade 12 education system. Because the education property tax is collected through the municipal property tax system, increases to the provincial portion appear on the same notices that we send out with municipal taxes. And this does often create confusion for residents, as it can be difficult to distinguish between the portion of the tax bill set by the municipality and the portion set by the province. So in Alberta, generally, there are 3 different components to everybody's property tax notice. So the first one is the municipal property tax, which funds everything that a municipality needs to operate. The provincial education property tax, which is set by the province and funds the education system. And then we do have other requisitions. Primarily, this is the seniors requisition that funds seniors housing. Across Alberta, the average residential property tax bill is made up of approximately 68% municipal taxes and 31% provincial education tax. Now, this was used 2023 statistical data across the entire province. One of the key challenges with this structure is that because the provincial taxes is collected through the municipal taxes, when the province increases that education property tax, residents often see that increase on their local tax notice and assume that it's from us, and often creates this confusion. In recent provincial budgets, the education property tax has increased significantly across the province, from $1.9 billion in 2013 to $2.7 billion in 2024. And now further to $3.6 billion in 2026. And projections from the province suggest that it may continue to increase in the coming years. Specifically for the town of Innisfail, the education property tax has increased from approximately $3.06 million in 2024 to $3.97 million in 2026, which represents an increase of about $915,000 over the last 2 years. So that's about 14.95% increase in 2025 and a 13.04% increase in 2026. So Alberta Municipalities has launched the Property Taxes Reimagined initiative, which focuses on improving public understanding of how property taxes are structured in Alberta and the role municipalities play in collecting the provincial education tax. As part of this initiative, administration has developed a communication plan that will focus on clearly explaining the difference between the municipal portion of the property tax bill and the provincial education property tax. The goal is to help residents better understand that while the tax is collected through the town's property tax system, the education tax is determined by the province and the revenue is forwarded directly to them. So information will be shared through several communication channels, including the town website. Our communication team has created its own direct website on the Involve site that is available for residents to go have a look at. Also social media, newspaper messaging, utility inserts, as well as we take the opportunity to send a couple of notices out with our property mill rate. One being the province of Alberta, insert that is attached to this report. We'll be sending that out with the municipal, our tax bills when they go out. The communication plan will direct residents to additional information provided through Alberta municipalities and direct the residents to reach out to the provincial government about questions regarding the education property tax. So the communication plan and supporting materials are attached for council's questions, and I'll take any questions you may have right now.
All right, thank you, Director Vickers. Does anybody have any feedback? Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, Mayor Barclay to administration, Director Vickers. I think it's a great opportunity for us to educate the public, and I think, just in my observation and just listening to you once again, I think these are reminders not only for us as councillors, but also as us as a council and administration to work closely and communicate with the public. That's how I'm looking at this, and thanks so much for the additional information.
Okay. Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Just a comment, I guess, in general is, of course, Alberta residents are still paying Alberta income tax. So we're actually paying two taxes now to the Alberta government, or we always have been, but this is an increased amount. So I think that bears clarification in the messaging as well. And I am curious if we define anywhere how the provincial government actually comes up with the number that they're assigning to each of our residences. Like, where does they do the math, right? We don't do the math. So are they basing it on assessments? Are they basing it on last year's assessment?
Yeah, so Mayor Barclay through to Councillor Wing. So what the province does is that they create what's called an equalized assessment. And they do that over the last couple of years and create a system where everyone's assessment equals dollar for dollar across the entire province. Then they create a provincial mill rate and assign that to the equalized assessment, and that creates the dollar value that Innisfil has to pay. So effectively, the dollar value that everyone has to pay is all based on the same assessment dollars. And then I take that dollar amount and I determine how much our mill rate needs to be based on our current assessment for that year and based on the invoice that we're going to receive from the government.
Thank you. Again, I think that's just good information to include.
But Director Vickers, just to clarify for me, like the province has set the mill rate at, I think, 4.4 for residential, and actually I wrote that down, 4.4 for residential and 4.25 for non-res.
Mayor Barclay, yes, Mayor Barclay, but that is to the equalized assessment.
Yes.
And they use that to create the bill to us, which is this year is going to be $3.9 million. And then I have to create our own mill rates to determine for our current assessment so that residents are billed accurately for this year.
Okay, I guess I'm still a bit confused. So, I mean, it's kind of like our mill rate, right? It's per 1,000 worth of assessment. So if I see a 13.04% tax increase, I know that the residential side is 4.4% in mill rate, so I'm assuming the other piece is assessment growth, because every community is going to be different when it comes to their education tax. So Calgary's getting quite a large increase because of their assessment growth, and I think Okotoks is quite up there too. So I guess I just want to make sure that, that the province has clearly stated that they want to increase the amount they pay through education property taxes to 1/3 of their budget. Right. I think we also need to be, transparent that there's been a tremendous amount of population growth in the province. They're building schools. So I'm fully in support of making sure residents understand that we're collecting that for the province, but at the same time, they are like us, right? They're trying to find money to pay for the school builds and that they're doing and everything else. So I just want to be a little bit careful, I guess, how we frame that. We're not kind of pointing at our finger, shame on you for having this big increase, because, part of it is that they've they wanted to increase the amount they've collected up to a third of their education budget, which is different than it's been in the past as well. So does that make sense? Or-
Absolutely,
yeah,
Mayor
okay.
Barclay. Yep.
Okay. Okay. And I don't know, we'll maybe get into it in the next agenda item, but even, like, I don't know what the split is here in Innisfail. Like, I think it's maybe more 75-25, is it?
Mayor
Or-
Barclay, do you mean from residential to non-residential?
No, from our taxes to versus education taxes. Like on the tax bill, I think my split personally is about 75-25.
Approximately. I'll have those
Okay.
numbers more specifically on the 13th, because that's,
Okay.
it will come to you then.
Okay, okay, thanks. Okay, anybody else? Just have a motion then that we accept this report as information, please. Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried, thanks. All right, we'll move into 3.2 and the special tax bylaw.
Yeah, so just in advance of a few special tax bylaws that will be coming before council next week, we thought that we'd just bring a bit of information and background on them before you guys go through them. So again, the two special tax bylaws that we'll be bringing next week are for 61st Avenue and 37th Street roadway improvement projects. The town initially received funding through the Federal Building Canada Grant Program back in about 2015 to support the lagoon remediation project. The grant funding was tied to infrastructure connected to the lagoon system, as well as the northeast trunk line that kind of goes along the train tracks there. In 2018, council approved the sale of a portion of that land that was tied to that grant. And as a result of that land sale, the town became ineligible for approximately $490,000 of that grant. So we did explore at that time whether the remaining funding could be reallocated to other components within the lagoon remediation project, but we were unsuccessful in that request. We were then advised that any remaining funding could be then put into a different project that is directly connected to the lagoon, the original infrastructure works. So because the northeast trunk line connects directly into 37th Street, administration then identified the reconstruction of 37th Street and 61st Avenue as projects that could meet that grant program requirements. So those roadway improvements were then prioritized in the 2020 and 2021 budget processes. And then although the remaining grant funding helped offset a portion of those costs, a significant portion of the roadway project still required municipal funding. And as a result, administration developed a funding approach where a portion of the paving costs would be recovered from properties that were directly benefiting from the roadway improvements. So under the model that council approved, 15% of the paving portion of the project costs would be recovered through a special tax. These costs are then allocated to the benefiting properties based on the roadway frontage that attaches to the road and collected over a 15-year repayment period. So these taxes are implemented through what's called a special tax bylaw. So special taxes do differ a little bit from general municipal property taxes because they only apply to a very defined group of properties that are identified within the bylaw and from a specific improvement. So under the MGA, municipalities are permitted to levy special taxes for improvements such as roads, water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, but it has to be within that defined benefiting area. And then another part of that legislation is these bylaws must be approved annually. So if the bylaw is not passed in any given year, the municipality doesn't have any authority to levy the tax for that year. However, you can go ahead and just re-tax that or redo the bylaw in another year. So while the projects and repayment schedules were approved several years ago, we do have to bring back the special tax bylaw annually for approval. So the details of the two projects, the 61st Avenue project was completed first. It costed approximately $913,000. The paving portion, which is what was identified by council at the time to attribute back that cost, was about $587,000 related to paving. And then council approved 15% of that cost being recovered through the special tax. So that was $88,134. And over a 15-year period beginning in 2021, it generates $5,785 per year. 37th Street followed the same model. The total project cost was just over $1 million, where approximately $500,000 were related to paving. And again, the 15% of the paving is to be recovered through the special tax over 15 years, just over $75,000, so it generates $5,004 annually. So a portion of both of these projects have already been collected in previous years. The remaining balances still to be collected are around $58,000 for 61st Ave and about $55,000 for 37th Street. The annual special tax revenue is used to reimburse the reserve that originally funded the paving portion of that roadway project. And these revenues do form part of the funding model that Council approved at the time and are incorporated into the town's budget and our long-term financial planning. So during the design and planning stages of these projects, administration also worked with the property owners along both roadways. These discussions included reviewing the proposed roadway improvements, discussing driveway access and construction impacts, as well as explaining the funding approach for the projects to each of those residents. So consent for the project and the funding model was received by a majority of the property owners. So we will be bringing back the special tax bylaws next week, but I'll take any questions council may have now.
All right, thank you, Director Vickers. Councillor Russell.
Yeah, so I understand your explanation, but for me, I want to know, is this an ongoing way we plan to pay for some of these repaving projects, or are these just two special occurrences for some reason?
Mayor Barclay through to Councillor Russell. So at this time, these were the only two that were considered because we had this extra bit of funding left in the Building Canada grant, but then that did create a bit of gap of funding, so we just came up with a way to do that. However, that is not something that we may overlook as we go forward, as costs become.
Yeah. So Mayor Barclay, I guess my concern would be that this doesn't become a practice of how we go. If we're going to repave street whatever, that we make sure that we tax appropriately and set our budget appropriately to cover that, rather than a special tax on limited residents every time we do one, would just be my thought. But.
Yeah, well, as Director Vickers knows, I've never been a fan of this. I had it on, sorry. Okay, it's kind of a philosophy for me. I've never been a huge fan of this. Toyed it over a lot when it was first being introduced, and I feel that, you know, taxation should be, I guess, shared throughout the community, and it's, you know, I look at this, I think, area even more now with the paving that's been done. It's also benefited the new industrial park and investment attraction, and considering the kind of condition that industrial park was in before, I think paving it benefits others other than just the businesses that are fronting those roads, and so you know, we have done some other projects and we haven't applied this, and so I think that's a fair comment. Like, is this what we're going to do, or are there other ways? And I guess I'll just kind of morph into something else here, Director Vickers. What I would like to see, if possible, as opposed to this coming back by itself, I'm wondering if it's possible to bring back more of a holistic look. So what are our non-residential tax rates, comparables into other central Alberta communities, or even the province as a whole? I know we've heard that they're like the bottom 15% in Alberta at one point in time. I don't know if that's still true, but I think they're certainly down there someplace. And can we take a look at a more bigger picture when it comes to setting this year's mill rates? What is our surplus? What are our mill rates? What is the assessment? Residential, non-residential? I know we've gone from maybe a 65 split on res, non-res to, what are we now, maybe 75-25 and or 80-20 maybe even. So that burden keeps being placed on the residents as opposed to the businesses. And of course, I certainly don't want to overtax our non-residential people either, but at the same time, you know, it needs to be fair. And, you know, are we kind of nickel and diming doing this as opposed to kind of a fair taxation throughout the community? And if we want to go into going out and getting sponsorships and donations, is this kind of a bit of a negative for some people, shall we say, some businesses, where we're doing this to them, where maybe we'd rather, if we could, collect some money for something else from them, and, you know, as a donation or whatever. But those are just my thoughts. I mean, you've heard it for long enough, and as has Councillor Wing and Heistad, but Councillor Wing.
I looked at the agenda when I saw it and thought, it can't be that time of the year already. As we do. It's just funny, because it's like, put it on your calendar, it's spring. I mean, I think we've, over the years, have beaten this one to death in so many ways. And I still go back to the fact that it is our fiduciary responsibility to oversee and build our reserves. And given our current asset management reporting and the identification of deficits and deficiencies, I just think that we need to persevere with this one and continue to restore the reserves that were used to do that work. I don't think, I mean, the work may have been done if the grant money hadn't been there, but it might not have been either. It was kind of one of those unplanned things that it's like, well, let's take the money from here and get this done, because otherwise what will we do with the grant? So it's a tough one. I agree that this is not something this is not best practice around budget. I agree with Councillor Russell for sure. But in this particular case, we've set the precedent. We've been doing this for enough years that I just think it's important we focus on getting that one reserve back to where it needs to be. So.
Yeah.
Councillor Russell?
And Mayor Barclay, I just want to qualify that I'll be voting in favor of this when it does come forward, because it is something that's been set. The budget is based on that now. It's just my concern was it doesn't become the way we do things moving forward. Right? I would rather have a debatable other ways to accomplish that. So. Yeah.
Sorry, our screens just went off. Here we go. Okay. So, Director Vickers, is it possible that you bring back like kind of that big picture all at once, or not necessarily? Like, I don't know how everything lines up for you, so.
Sorry, Mayor Barclay.
Okay.
Absolutely, we can bring back a larger report that kind of looks at everything. So taxes were intended to come being passed on the 13th. I was planning on bringing a larger report on the week before at A&P to kind of have a conversation about where you want that mill rate to go, and things like that. And we can have a bigger conversation about taxes as a whole, with a stress that the tax mill rate must be passed on the 13th. So
13th of
April, sorry, yeah. So is having that conversation the week before enough time?
Well, I'm more worried about you than us, if it's enough time for you. And
Mayor Barclay, we'll talk administratively.
Sure.
We'll gather as much information as we can, and if it makes sense to bring it in as soon as possible, we'll do that. Instead of chunking it out, we'll see what we can do for council.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, we'll just have a motion then to accept the report as information, please. Councillor McKellar.
I'll move that Mayor Barclay, I'll move that we accept the report as information.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 3.3 with Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I provided a notice of motion to come forward to council at our next scheduled council meeting a week from today regarding asset fund development. And the motion reads, whereas opportunities currently exist for citizens and businesses to be directly involved in the support and advancement of Innisfail facilities focused on wellness, sport, recreation, and culture. Therefore, it is timely that administration and council create both philanthropic and sponsorship programs based on best practices and key learnings from other municipalities engaging in this work. Policies currently exist relative to sponsorship and recognition. However, it is timely that we review and understand how to identify, quantify, and ultimately market those opportunities to the community at large. Programs will provide a complete audit and assessment of relevant facilities, identifying potential areas of value, differentiate between philanthropy and sponsorship, outline a plan for feasibility studies focusing on sponsors and donors and their areas of interest, identification of community partners, in brackets, existing organizations / not-for-profits with mandates of supporting wellness, recreation, sport, and culture, The expertise and work for the creation of an actual program will need to be outsourced. While it isn't always desirable to recreate the wheel, and there are many municipalities who have comprehensive programs, each community and their facilities are unique, and therefore a cookie-cutter approach does not work well. An understanding of cost to develop and administer a fulsome program will be important. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct administration to bring back a report outlining the current marketing and sponsorship programs and practices relative to building financial assets in support of Town of Innisfail facilities. So just as a bit of an addition to, just as a comment, we've been talking about the need for this work all throughout last term, and of course it was certainly on the table when we were discussing the need to modernize the swimming pool and the various iterations of facilities that we were looking at relative to the aquatic center. And we just couldn't land somewhere. So with recent news of the federal grant not coming through the way we wanted and the FCM grant not coming through the way we wanted, I've just been really thinking about this a lot and thinking the time has come that we actually really need to bite the bullet. Kind of the framing for me was seeing a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago from Mayor Thorne from Okotoks. And I appreciate Okotoks is not Innisfail. As I said in my motion, we're all unique. Okotoks is a very big community, but what spoke to me, though, was the fact that she announced a new sponsor to name the arena. That's a benefit for the town, but then she talked about how it would be a meaningful investment that would impact Okotoks minor hockey and the impacts that it would feel, that would flow down to the rest of the community. She talked about the numbers of games and the numbers of people, and I'm thinking this is Innisfail just being described to the T. This is absolutely the way we serve our community and the way our community works within other communities. That was evident last week when we met with Red Deer County and the other municipalities in the region. We need to start thinking about the fact that there are many examples of communities of all sizes. There are many examples of communities that are smaller and larger than what we are, but they're doing some really creative work in building capacity within their municipality and also then growing the capacity of their facilities. So that's the motion that will be on the agenda for next week's council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wing. Councillor McKellar, you have your microphone on.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you didn't turn it
Absolutely
off. Okay, that's all right. Councillor Heistad.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. To Councillor Wing, I think you wrote it very well, and it's a good start for us. I think those discussions happened previous council on how do we move forward, and we know that we may not have the provincial funding that we may or may not get in the future. So let's build off those partnerships. So no, I really appreciate the time and effort you put into the wording of the motion, and I think this is the right step for us to work with lots of different groups, not-for-profits, and look at the opportunities and be creative. So I appreciate your efforts, because I know I can't write as well as you. Thanks.
Yeah, and I would say ditto to those words too. I think before we did talk about this, but we weren't even really knowing what we were doing with the facility at the time, so it's hard to kind of go out and do something when you don't know what you've got at the end game. So I think the timing is perfect, and I'm also wondering, Councillor Wing, or maybe through to Director Jenkins, we have a sponsorship opportunity at the arena. Are we going to offer the same kind of, would that be part of this work, like offering potentially the same kind of thing to the swim club that we have done at the arena to hockey teams or other lacrosse, etc.?
I guess we hadn't contemplated sort of wallboard type sponsorship at the aquatic center. We are working on a package similar to what we have for the arena. Okay. Once we're able to take photographs and that sort of thing, that would be part of it. But yeah, we hadn't contemplated at this point something similar to what we have with the Eagles.
Okay. I think that would be fair and equitable if it's possible. I mean, if we had a small section or something at that, but maybe we'll wait till this work gets done, and because it would be part of this, and we don't need to go off on a separate tangent, but I just wanted to mention that. Anybody have any other questions or quiet group today? Okay. Just have somebody make a motion then, please, to accept Councillor Wing's. Yeah, notice of motion.
I will make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Strong. All in favor? Carried. All right, I'll move on to 3.4 with Councillor Heistad.
Yeah, I brought this forward. It was there was an article in the Albertan from Carstairs. Just recently, there was a motion passed at the Carstairs Council where they have some rules and regulations regarding e-bikes and traffic, and basically embedding that in their traffic bylaw. And so what I was wanting to do is I would hope that through administration to our director Leith to take a look at this bylaw and have an opportunity to potentially create our own bylaw in regards to e-bikes and how they're utilized in our own community. And I'll back up a bit. Like last term, I had brought this up a number of times of some of the concerns that I do have in the community with e-bikes and people not wearing helmets or driving unsafe, and really we don't have anything real tangible with rules provincially with e-bikes. So we, usually the communities are onto their own to develop these bylaws. So when I saw the community of Carstairs do this, I'm thinking, there's about 6,000 people there. We're about 8,200, 8,500 and change. And I think the big thing for me is the concern that I see. And from what I know, a lot of accidents that happen with e-bikes and scooters and that, a lot of injuries that do happen. And the young people, adults, go to the emergency and it costs our taxpayers at the end of the day, the province. But I was hoping that we could bring this back to Director Leith, have a look at it and potentially have our own bylaw. So CO Becker, that's why I was bringing it forward this way. If there's any other direction or however you want me to present this is how I was looking at it as a first discussion to bring it forward and see where my council fellow colleagues thought on the subject, where their heads were at. Thanks.
Through the chair, Mayor Barclay, through to Councillor Heistad, on to the director. There has been some administrative conversation knowing the topic is coming forward. Just looking for the director, if there's any thoughts immediately, Director Leith, in relation to your thoughts on the Traffic Safety Act. Not so much Carstairs. I think Carstairs, their own circumstances, but from your experiences, put you on the spot a little bit, from what you heard of the councillor, from your experiences with this type of mobility, what comes to mind right now?
So your worship, through to Councillor Heistad. I know previously I did bring into council basically the concerns with regard to e-scooters. E-scooters are still classed as a prohibited vehicle and can't be operated on sidewalks. Regardless of whether you choose to change a bylaw to include that, it's still, as it stands, a prohibited vehicle classed as a mini vehicle. So the use of e-bikes is on the increase. The Traffic Safety Act generally doesn't keep up with technology in respect of speed. The 500 watts that it relates to in respect of an e-bike is now being exceeded, and even the speed limits that they can get up to. We can certainly look at our traffic bylaw and see if there are any additions there. Certainly our parks bylaw covers the speed that we allow on our trails, which is currently 20 kilometres an hour. We certainly can do a review and look at what best practice is out there. The province did do a study which ended last year on whether they should allow these miniature vehicles not to be prohibited. That study ended around November. They still haven't released the outcomes of that study on whether the Traffic Safety Act would be amended or changed to allow those what are prohibited vehicles. On the enforcement side, if our peace officers see any of those vehicles out there being operated on our sidewalks or roads, certainly scooters, the individual are advised that it is a prohibited vehicle and shouldn't be used on our sidewalks. And again, e-bikes, again, the ones that you see that do not require human power to propel them, so the ones without pedals, again, are prohibited and shouldn't be used on our sidewalks, and the officers will take action against them.
Councillor Russell.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, I appreciate Councillor Heistad's bringing this up, but personally, I wouldn't be in favor of a specific bylaw. I do have an e-bike, I ride it daily, but there are already rules and regulations in place that you have to follow, like the speed limits on the trail system. And there's things in place, and there's different types of e-bikes. Mine's a pedal assist, I don't have a throttle. So it's whatever I can generate up to a maximum, and they are capped on the speed. On the bikes that you buy, they do cap them. I think mine's capped at 32 kilometers an hour, and you get no more assist. That's even on a highway, doesn't matter where you are. So I think we have regulations in place that, if they're enforced, could help increase the safety, but personally I wouldn't be in favor of a specific bylaw aimed at an e-bike, because they're changing all the time, right? You're going to be continually updating that policy, whereas if you had general regulations related to the speed a bike can go, regardless of the type of bike, in a certain area, that's easier to enforce, in my opinion.
Director Leith, do you see problems with e-bike operations, or?
Your Worship, we've not seen any specific problems. I know we've had some odd ones, which has been the individual who fitted the gas-powered engine to it, which was excessively noisy, and again, that was dealt with through other sections of the bylaw or the Traffic Safety Act. Certainly at this point in time, we haven't seen it. I see in other communities those who have the shared e-scooter schemes where that does allow them to operate on sidewalks and trails. They're the communities that I believe are seeing the problems in respect to personal safety and increases in accidents.
Yeah, the ones that have the scooter service,
Yeah.
those ones, yeah. So, CEO Becker, what's the best way to move forward with this? Like, do you want to, at a meeting, bring back the existing bylaw again so we can review it? And I know it was here not too long ago, but...
Yeah, there's a couple things, Mayor Barclay,
Yeah.
as per council's conversation. When I was just making notes on potential options for council to consider, one is providing that feedback on enforcement through service levels. As we heard through the director, there's prohibitive vehicles that do exist. What is the role of the enforcement team to ensure that those owners are aware they're prohibitive, and what actions are they warning or fines, and under the discretion of the director onto his team. Certainly could conduct a review of the bylaw in relation to the conversation to see if there's areas that we can suggest that don't contradict the Traffic Safety Act, or council direction to bring back the bylaw. So there's a few options you can provide that feedback to, I believe.
Okay. I'll pass it to Councillor Heistad, since this is your agenda item.
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor Barclay, to CEO Becker and Director Leith. I think there's an opportunity to review the bylaw itself. Where I'm coming from is the safety aspect, young people. And I have seen numerous times where people are doing crazy stuff in this community with e-bikes and young people with no helmets on. And some of those scooters can, do that 20, that 15 to 30K. Classic example is being at Tim Hortons at 6:15 in the morning. There's one guy flying down the road, 3 coffees in his hand, no helmet. And this guy's like going the 42K easy on a scooter. And it's just a crazy, like how I'm looking at this is a preventative side of things. But, if administration's okay to review it and bring it back to us, and then we make that decision, then fair enough. That's the process.
Okay, with that, it'll be through a resolution Director Leith, any comments to that? Or?
As Councillor aware, it was quite public that certainly a number of moving traffic offences increased by 33% at the beginning of this month. We had 2 weeks' notice. Our traffic bylaw does generally reflect some of those moving traffic pieces, so therefore to align our fines and fees in respect to that is something that I believe we should update anyway. And that would give opportunity to do some research on what other communities are doing in respect to best practice on their bylaws to control that piece. And certainly if there is an individual or individuals in the community that are acting inappropriately, please let us know.
Q alert.
With that, I'd like to do to Councillor Heistad, if you'd pose a motion for that directive, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, I'm not going to, I'm really going to, I'll make that motion if that's okay, if direction.
A motion to bring the bylaw
Motion
back.
to bring the bylaw back, yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried. All right, we'll move into 4.1. And good to see the Trans-Canada Trail grant. Good job, thank you. Just have somebody make a motion then, please, if we accept the correspondence as information.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make the motion to accept correspondence for information.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. One question, CO Becker, in the minutes for the Police and Safe Community Committee meeting, the portion around the committee members having to do new qualifications for that, I didn't quite understand in the minutes where that is at.
So that'd be 5.1.
I know there was some concern around it.
Definitely, we'll pull it up, Mayor Barclay.
Okay,
and
thanks.
We can highlight it. So there's 2 action items coming from the Policing Safe Communities Committee. One was enhanced security screening, where the committee talked about the requirement from the members at large requirements to fill out security clearance forms, which were from, I'll speak from my perspective, were quite detailed. And so is put to administration to look at that and come back to really highlight what that security requirements are, so the whole committee was aware of that and anticipating a recommendation come to council, just more of an education, and see if council wished to see if council had any concerns with that type of information they're seeking. Again, only speaking from my perspective, not from the committee, and our council reps can maybe speak to it. But often when you get into the level of questions that are what I believe are being required, could be a prohibitive to attract good folks to sit on the committee when they have to give up a lot of their personal details and family details.
Do you understand why the request has been made, or no? We haven't reached out to find out?
Your Worship, I know we did ask the committee members to submit some questions with regard to that. We're pulling them together and we're going to push that out to the Government of Alberta and say the why, basically, when they already have enhanced criminal records checks to be on the committee. So that we did get some feedback this week, which we can push on to the GOA and find out the why.
Thank you, Councillor Russell.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, I sit on the committee, and there was a fair number of amount of concern raised by members of the committee. We did receive an email of these screening tools, but I haven't been able to open them for some reason. I've tried several times, but I'll keep looking. But if the amount of detail is in there that I'm hearing is in there, I would be hesitant myself to fill it out. I don't see the need for them to know all my financial information to sit on that committee. So.
I'll speak to it.
Councillor Heistad.
Mayor Barclay, when I was sitting on this committee, this same question did come up, and the previous committee members chose not to forward the information. And the only time that I've seen information like this is when you're asking for loans of $50 to $70 million. When I sat on as Secretary Treasurer for AUP, so to me that is way out of line in my opinion, professional opinion.
So we have a motion to accept the correspondence and information. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thanks. All right, and we'll go to roundtable. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, nothing really much to add. There is a little fundraiser tonight for a local guy that is definitely well deserving of the recognition. So hopefully that'll be well attended. Yeah, and other than that, MPC tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
I'll have a full report next week, have the IDR MAG on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I, too, will have a full report for next week. Just congratulations to the Innisfail Fishing Game for a really, really well done banquet on Saturday night. I think that it was a lot of fun. The food was great, as always, and I think they raised some good money, so good for them.
Thank you. Councillor McKellar.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I have nothing to report. I'll have a report ready next week. But again, much like my colleague, Councillor Wing there at the Innisfail Fishing Game was a very enjoyable event.
It was. Thank you. Councillor Russell.
I'll have a full report, but we did have the Community Services Standing Committee meeting and the $10,000 from the solar project. We had a number of applications come in, and we did decide on 4 to award. I won't say where they are until they've been notified, but it was great to see the interest, and the money is in the process of being distributed.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Heistad.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Like Councillor Hill, I'll be at the event tonight at the arena, and looking forward to, I got an FCSS meeting on Wednesday, and then I'm looking forward to Friday, honoring a longtime firefighter for many years of service. Thanks.
Thanks. So, busy. I just want to give a shout out to Innisfail Middle School. I went to a play on Thursday, and Trickster Theatre partnered with the school, and it was pretty cool. I think they came Monday, and in 4 days they had this play ready to go, and it was a story about being snowed in. So of course Thursday was Blizzard Day in Innisfail, so the play was about kids and teachers not being able to go home at the end of the day. So it was a lot of fun. It was about an hour and a half or so, but it was lots of laughs, and kudos to them, because to do that in 4 days, it's pretty amazing. So fishing game on Saturday night was fantastic. I also attended the Innisfail Skating Club annual ice show, the 61st annual, in fact, yesterday afternoon, and that was great. Those proceeds as well, the admission proceeds, were also for Darren Black, as is tonight's event, so looking forward to that as well. And yeah, I have a connection this week with CEO Becker from connection I made down in Ottawa. We're going to have a chat sometime this week, I think Wednesday or something. So yeah, lots of good things going on, and looking forward also to Mr. Searoyd's 5th party on Friday night. And all right, we will move to upcoming events. Just have a motion to accept the upcoming events as information, please. Councillor McKellar.
Mayor Barclay, I'll move the motion to accept the upcoming events.
All right, all in favor? Carried. And then we'll have a motion to go in camera as per, yes, Councillor Hill.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I can make that motion. I'll make the motion that we move in camera as per MGA 197-2-ATIA 29.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried.